Hi everyone, I'm here with Steve Hanlon, who had a session with me, rapid transformational therapy session 3 weeks ago for anxiety and panic attacks. So Steve, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Steve, tell us what anxiety feels like, what a panic attack feels like. Can you just briefly describe what it actually feels like to have a panic attack?
Having a panic attack for me, and I believe like for most people, because I've obviously looked on the internet, etc., and talked to other people about it, there's really physical manifestations and symptoms that make you psychologically believe that something really bad is going to happen to you. And specifically what I mean by that is really intense heart racing, parasympathetic symptoms, your palms getting sweaty, feeling like very dizzy, the sensation that you're going to have like a heart attack or a stroke. They say that they're very similar when you look at the information or talk to a physician. It feels really real when it's happening, although it's not when it's a panic attack.
Absolutely. What's happening, the reason why you actually feel the physiological symptoms is that the left side of your brain, the speech side, is lit up like a Christmas tree. And when you're highly anxious and it goes into panic, you are in the past, you're thinking about everything that has gone wrong in the past. You're feeling shame, regret, guilt, maybe the remorse, and you're thinking about the past. And then what happens is you're panicked and worried about the future. And then in the present moment, you're feeling extremely frustrated because you can't get over this. And the mind doesn't know what's actually happening. It just believes whatever you're telling it. Just think if there's a switchboard and you're communicating, oh my goodness, all of these things have happened in the past. What about the future? Your mind can't see what's actually happening, and the amygdala is dumping adrenaline into your system because it hears this happened in the past. This might happen in the future. We're under attack. We need to run. And it dumps adrenaline into your system so that you can run for your life because it thinks you're in danger. It doesn't waste time sending blood to your stomach to digest. It sends blood to your limbs so that you can run because it just believes whatever you tell it. It doesn't know what's actually happening in front of you. It just hears all of the past, what's happened in the past, this could happen in the future. That is why we actually have physiological symptoms and why it's your mind. Your mind is very powerful and it just believes whatever you tell it. You're communicating something. You're communicating something to somebody else on the other side of the world. They can't actually see what's going on. They just hear what you're telling it. That's why you're feeling that way. Now, tell me, when did this start for you? When do you remember having your first panic attack?
Yeah. I remember vividly when I was a child, maybe like 9 or 10, I'm not sure what the exact age was, but I had this overwhelming sensation. Like I said before, something was very wrong. My heart was racing. I was feeling like dizzy. I told my mom that something was wrong, and I just remember being in the car with her, being in the front seat, laying down, and just an overwhelming sensation that I was going to die. That's really my first recollection of that.
Yeah.
Through the rest of the next 20 or so years, I'm sure that things happened on and off. Not a lot of specific things that I can remember between that point and being in my early 40s, but that's when I feel like it really took off.
Okay.
The anxiety really took off at that time.
What happened when you went to the hospital when you were 9 or 10?
When I was 9 or 10, I think that they just checked me out. I can't really remember, and everything was fine. They didn't find anything with whatever tests they did, and then my mom ended up just taking me home. As an adult, I also have taken myself to the emergency room 2 or 3 times because I really felt like something was wrong, and they checked me into EKG and CAT scan and things like that. I had taken my blood pressure, and they ruled out everything and said everything was fine. It's also just been like a panic attack. But in that moment when you're having it, and I'm a healthy person in general, rarely get colds and things like that, so I'm not going for medical stuff all of the time, but with this, it seems like really real.
Many of my clients come in and they tell me that, yes, I've been to the emergency room, and it's almost, they feel embarrassed because they've gone to the emergency room several times and they're like, oh, here's the panic attack guy. We're telling you it's not your heart. You have anxiety. A lot of my clients say that to me.
That's exactly how it feels. It's really embarrassing. And then people that have been important to me in my life and know that it's going on are trying to convince me in that moment, like, this isn't real, this is just a panic attack, but there's still that belief. And
because because you actually feel the physical symptoms.
You do.
It's been 3 weeks since your session with me. And how are your anxiety and panic attack levels now?
Basically,
1 to 10, 10 being really high.
no, I think it's really like a 0 or a 1. I do feel like it's normal to have a certain level of anxiety just to get through life. We all need a little bit to be at the edge and be able to get up and function out of work. But overall, my anxiety has been really minimized since our session. There was a lot of visualization involved. I know that we'll talk about that in a minute that I've been able to use. I think.
What had you tried before you met me to cope with your anxiety and panic? You've had it since you were 9.
Right.
What did you try before?
I had really tried a lot of different things. We all go to the internet and seek out tools to try to help us with different things. I went to a therapist and learned deep breathing exercises. I had some recordings and things of that I would also use. I was on medication, although I didn't like to use it like regularly for when I felt like those moments might be coming on. I used a lot of different things. One thing that I turned to a lot to deal with it was alcohol, which actually just ended up accelerating it and making it a lot worse and making me have much more frequent episodes of panic attacks.
Oh, wow. The alcohol kind of numbs it for a few seconds.
It takes
few
it away
minutes.
for a while, but then
And then
it makes it worse the next few days, unfortunately.
Yes.
Mhm.
Using those coping mechanisms, what level did your anxiety go to using those methods? 10 being really high, what would you say they were at with the breathing, the therapy, the medication?
It was sort of like hit or miss depending on the situation and what I was using and how much alcohol I might have had in my system, that sort of thing. So it would always back and forth, but I would always go back to having the panic attacks. It would help modify it somewhat, but I would definitely go back to having the panic attacks.
They didn't help.
They didn't fully cure.
Yeah.
They might have made some of the panic attacks subside, or I might have been able to get through some quicker, but overall.
Can you recall what level you think your anxiety was at a 1 to 10 before our session?
Definitely when I would have anxiety, I would say it was like at a 9 or a 10, just
Okay.
because of the physical and the strong beliefs that something was really wrong.
How often did you have panic attacks?
I definitely had had panic attacks like less since I had eliminated alcohol and done some environmental modifications, things like that, exercising, relaxing, deep breathing, stress reduction, but it was still present.
You still had them. How often would they occur, do you think?
Less frequently since I had made the environmental modifications, maybe like once a month,
Once
I
a
would
month.
say.
And I recall, I think your anxiety levels were maybe 6 or 7
Mhm.
when a situation arose, but generally a 3 to 4. And I remember you saying it would be wonderful if I didn't have this low humming anxiety,
Right.
which most people live with. They just get used to this low humming anxiety where you feel as though you feel shortness of breath, but you just feel like you can't relax, and you feel as though something bad's just around the corner that's going to happen.
Yes.
And you're always on guard, and it really affects being present.
Mhm.
It affects being able to just focus on, I need to finish this work, because you have this sense of something's going to happen.
Mhm.
And you just feel it physiologically
Yes.
in your body. It's in your chest, it's in your stomach, and it's because of the thoughts that in the speech
Mhm.
that we're telling our minds. Tell us what it was that made you want to try rapid transformational therapy and hypnotherapy to finally overcome this debilitating anxiety you've had most of your life.
I'm open to a lot of modalities. I'm a licensed occupational therapist, so I really understand trying different modalities, trying different things to try to help each patient on their own. And I was really open to hypnotherapy. And I had known my best friend that lives in Boston is a psychotherapist, and he's had great success with hypnotherapy and referring for hypnotherapy. I thought it was a really good solution to try.
Great. And what was it that made you try it with me?
I-
Choosing the right person is done.
I think getting to know you and your sincerity, and I just felt like there was an energy that could help me. I felt like very safe and comfortable, and that was really important to me too,
Share with us as much as you'd like on how the session felt, because people are afraid. They're very nervous. Even though it may help them, there's just so many unknowns. And just share with us what the session with me felt like.
I was nervous too. I didn't, know frankly if it was going to work. I didn't want to disappoint you in any way or myself or try yet something else that might not work. And also it was like the unknown, like you said, a lot of people are scared. I think the thing that stood out to me was I was talked through the whole entire session. There really wasn't a second that I was left at my own devices, or I was very much being navigated through the thought process. It was also very specific and targeted, and it left me with a lot of very specific visualization techniques that I have been able to use that I remembered that was very helpful to me. The tone of your voice is also extremely soothing and comforting, almost like a lullaby. So you get comfortable very quickly. The environment of the room was very comfortable. The workspace here at Work Bar, like we said, is very zen and loft-like, but the actual room itself was very comfortable, lit appropriately. I had a blanket which felt like very comfortable and nurturing.
It was, if you had to sum it up in one word, what the session felt like. For anyone who is curious, is a little bit afraid of having a session, how would you describe it in one or two words?
I would say either comforting or rewarding.
Okay.
Those two words,
Yeah.
Facilitatory.
It is very guided, prompting you the entire time.
Yes.
You don't feel out of control.
Mm-hmm.
It is very specific, and you do have to have someone who knows where to take you to help you overcome the anxiety.
I felt like you were able to process information that I was conveying to you very quickly and then take it to where it needed to go on the next step.
Yes.
It requires a lot of, in my opinion, fast thinking on the person that's administering the hypnotherapy on their part. You need to go to somebody that's really well trained, I feel like.
How have you felt since the session? And I know that you've had some very stressful situations arise where how has your anxiety been?
It's been significantly better. I said I've been able to use a visualization to help me with my process. Like you had mentioned, we had spoken before, I've had a lot of work changes in my industry as of October 1st. So it's been very stressful with that. And then some personal things going on in my life too, happening all at once. Yeah. So, to have the, tools and arsenal to help deal, combat and mitigate the panic attacks has been really helpful.
Can you imagine if you didn't have this session right before everything just snowballed?
Yeah.
In the last 3 weeks, I feel like it all happened right after.
It did, yes.
So it's kind of divine that we had the session right before.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes. What would you say your levels are at now?
No, like I said, I really feel like I have a good handle on, the anxiety, and I think just connecting some of the dots. We talked a lot about that earlier. There was a lot of connecting the dots, what was the anxiety stemming from? The visualization, we talked about a lot of specific things that have stuck with me visually. So if I do start to feel something come on, I've been able to use that. But definitely I have been able to keep it at bay where I haven't, even had to do deep breathing or take medication, anything like that.
Yeah.
Probably a 0 or a 1. Like I said, I do feel like from a functional level, everybody in order just to get out of bed needs, to have a slight level of anxiety, but
sense of urgency.
Yeah, it hasn't been
I need to get up. I can't just sleep all day.
Yeah, and one thing that you said earlier that really stuck out to me too, primitively, it's our instinct to run, and you had mentioned, I'm not going to say it the right way, that the blood flow goes to your legs. That's why it leaves your head, and your heart starts racing and everything. And I thought a lot about that too.
Yeah. So 0 to 1, that's phenomenal. And amidst all of the stressful situations that are going on, what would you say to anybody who is suffering with panic attacks and suffering with anxiety? What would you say to anyone who has tried everything too? Tried everything. I mean, you tried everything.
Yeah, I really did try everything. And like I said before, I have a very healthy lifestyle with diet and exercise and things like that. Just be open to other things. There's I'm not even sure if this is correct, but there's you can answer that, subconscious things that we can tap into
Yeah.
And I really hadn't, tried like visualization before to help me with that. Just be open to trying like new things.
Yeah, the guided visualization. So all of the things that we try on the outside are all logical, conscious actions that won't make a tremendous impact because you have to first get to the root cause. What I tell a lot of people is in order to change the fruit, you have to change the root. So when we're doing deep breathing, when we are journaling, when we're doing talk therapy, it's great. But that's similar to cutting the apples off the tree or, taking them off the tree, but then they grow back. Rapid transformational therapy and the hypnotherapy that I practice, where I'm guiding you to those scenes, is getting to the root and extracting the root cause. And then we're installing new beliefs, planting new seeds during the session because of my fast thinking. And I have to know exactly where to lead you, where to take you. And we plant those new seeds together where you're completely aware and, we just flow together very well. And then when you go home, you listen to a recording every day, and that is nurturing your mind. That is changing the neural pathways in your brain. That's how the mind works. It learns from repetition. So listening to the recording every night for at least 21 days is like watering your garden and giving it sunshine. So we pull up the root, we plant new seeds, and then it's your job to listen to the recording. How has that been? Because it hasn't taken up 5 hours of your day. I need to overcome anxiety, so I need to do this homework for 5 hours of the day to change my life.
I think it's just, like having it at the end of the day, so you're going to bed, with that exercise in it. It's also like very relaxing and very nurturing. So that's how you're also starting your dream cycle. We're typically before bedtime, like in a relaxed state anyways. It's a good time, to listen to like that recording, because it's similar to the way that the session was. You just said it's good reinforcement, for the work that was done in hypnotherapy.
Yes, it was. So what's happening is when we're fully awake, we're in beta state. And then when you start to listen to the recording, you're going into alpha. And then for the next 3 hours, you're in alpha and theta until you get into delta. And your mind will absorb all of the words that you're hearing on the recording. So, when you fall asleep watching a horror movie, you're going to have nightmares because that is what your mind is absorbing.
Right.
Thank you so much for sharing with us. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention or share?
I've said it like several times, but I just want to touch upon like the visualization and how it helped me, because I felt like the way that you presented it, and I don't want to, preview like anybody's session because I know it will be individualized to them.
Right.
But there was a very distinct, comparison between like, negative thoughts and positive thoughts, and identifying like what the root cause was and how to carry that over, into like today in a positive way. Again, I don't want to get too specific about it, but I felt like that was really tremendously helpful, and that's really what stuck with me the most, I think. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And definitely something we can't really do on our own. We can try and go back and think of, okay, what was it that was the cause? But it's really your subconscious mind is like a huge filing cabinet. It stores storage drive. It holds every single snapshot of your life. And a lot of detectives actually use hypnosis to help people uncover license plates. Athletes use hypnosis. Some of the top athletes and Olympian athletes use hypnosis to visualize. Visualization is incredibly important to achieving anything because you first have to see it.
Right.
And then what I do is I find the imprints and I get to the beliefs that were installed and we uninstall them during the session. I'm so happy that you've been able to really take that visualization tool. All of the things that we learn won't be as impactful until we first change the root. Now you can have the exact garden that you want because we've implanted new seeds.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story with us, for opening up. And I'm so grateful that, you know, you're not having the panic attacks anymore and the anxiety after suffering with it for decades. And people really do think, what's wrong? You know, people who don't have anxiety or panic, they just think, what's wrong with this person? Because there's nothing there.
Yeah.
But our minds are really powerful.
Yeah, for sure. No, thanks for helping. Yeah.
My pleasure. Love it. All right. Thank you.